I want to take a moment to talk about sharing our stories. The real problem is the majority of people they hide behind a false facade. So they'll embellish their stories, they'll concoct wild ideas, or they'll skew something in their favor. So it's not an actual true representation of the truth. What people fail to realize is that people can relate to our flaws. You know, people are more resilient than we think. So the idea that you paint yourself as perfect is just so pointless. It really is. It's actually more endearing to people when they get to see you in your authenticity. And that's what I've done. So throughout all my books, I tell the truth. I don't embellish the truth anywhere. And for me, even at the early stages, it was just like, I don't want to be anything other than myself. And I only want to tell the true story. Now, I recognize people when they hear a story, they'll naturally be skeptical, naturally think, "Oh, that's not true," or that have obviously exaggerated. That's It's like people can perceive what they want when they hear something, but we all know within ourselves whether something is accurate or not. And I think by the time people get through my books, for instance, and they've finished with hearing my story, they'll recognize that I'm consistent throughout, and it does make sense. And the reason it makes sense is because it's true. It's simple as that. I've always felt very strongly in this, in that being authentic is just it's more important than anything. There's too much of this where we just try to be copies of someone else or do something to appease others. And the real problem is the bar always moves. If you try to be someone you're not, you'll always have to wear a mask and you'll always have to adapt to society. So you're always going to have to move wherever the margins move. Styles change, so fads come and go. It'd be impossible to sustain it. An image that's not entirely accurate. So, really, when it comes to telling our stories, it's balancing whether something's worth hearing and the power it can have and how it can help us by releasing its therapeutic, but also it can help transform others' lives and the repercussion of it. With me, I recognized early on that when I speak my truth, it can get me in trouble. There could be severe repercussions, especially because the world is quite hateful. And some countries and states, they'll go to extreme lengths, um, really, to silence people and do what they want. But I always felt, again, early on, that I'm not going to allow anything to control or coerce me or silence me. It's not something. That's not a place I want to be. I'm not someone really that's terrified of not reaching 80 years old. Of course, we all want to live a wonderful life, but for me, it's a balance between: do you want to live a long life, or do you want to live a fulfilling life, one that actually meant something? Because you can play it safe your entire life. Maybe you get to 80 years old and really nothing happened. It wasn't really, it was almost like a pointless existence, though. It's almost like a race to how, like a long distance race, marathon, who can survive the longest? Well, that's great if that's your task, if that's really what you want to achieve. But it's not my goal. My goal isn't like that at all. So, while we don't want something to happen, I've never been terrified of anything happening. It's just so, for that point of view, I guess I have a level of courage and I'm brave enough to share the story. Now, I've done 6 books at this point, and to be honest, I'm incredibly proud. Even like this morning and last night, I was thinking, bloody hell, you've done 6 now. That's crazy. That's wild. Especially considering I only released my first book in 2019. It's not been that long, although it feels long to me. The transformations I've been through, the evolution, the growth, it's been sustained on an annual basis. Because I'm relentless, and it's just the way I live my life. So yeah, so that's the other thing. I could get to 50 years old, for instance, and achieve an awful lot that maybe someone that reaches 80 just didn't do. Because again, it's how do you use your time? If you use your time at a very slow, mundane pace, it takes you longer to do anything, doesn't it? Um, but yeah, it's like sometimes when it comes to telling the story, though, it's a where to start. And I always say this to people: anyone that's interested in writing a book and telling and writing their story or anything like that, it's the best place to start is now. Start from this moment, because right now you can. It's easy to think clearly. When you go to the past, you have to go a bit deeper and maybe you have to think a bit harder. Um, but really, the best place to start is in the present. Because what'll happen is you'll talk about how you're feeling, what you're going through, and inevitably there's a reason you're feeling that and a reason you're going through it. And that'll start as you're thinking it. So as you put your thoughts onto the page, you will naturally deviate backwards. You'll naturally deviate into the past and then consider the connections you've had and the situations that unfolded, and this led to this, and I had that situation. And the beauty with telling a story is chapters don't have to stay in the order that you wrote them. You can move them about. So although you could say the present is where I start, later on you could move the present chapter further into the book. But yeah, it's our story is unique to us, and it's having the confidence to start writing that story. When I wrote my first book of Father's Daughter, I had no, you know, training. I didn't have anyone sort of advising me. This is how you write a book. This is how it's structured. I had to figure it out for myself. So one thing I did, and it really helped, although I didn't write a novel in the end, it was useful to start. I picked about 4 or 5 books, all different types of books, and I put them on the table. And all I was interested in really was the first page. How did people start their books? Like, what was the very first word and of the first paragraph, and that what was the point of the first chapter really? And then when I saw that, that helped me come up with that first start. It was like, okay, so you just really just jump straight into it. Very rarely is it a slow start. It's usually straight into the action. This is what we're doing. This is where we're at. And boom, you're thrust immediately into a situation. And I say, we all have a story to tell. There's something within all of us. Just because I share my story and I put it onto pages of a book, and hopefully I help people heal. The whole point is to help people heal, so then people feel strong enough within themselves to obviously be themselves. And that's the main thing for me is authenticity. And I'd love to, impart that into other people to be strong and resilient, confident in themselves. That doesn't mean having arguments with people left, right, and center and not being, confrontational. It's about just embracing who you are and allowing that bubble around you to just like protect you and just say, look, I'm not allowing anything that disrespects me in my life. And that's literally where it goes. But there's so many nuances to it, and I feel my books will empower people. Like my new book, I was sitting in bed last night reading it with the Kindle. I've ordered a copy myself. I don't even have the physical copy yet. It should be here tomorrow. I'm excited. So I'm reading the Kindle version, and I was like picking random chapters really, rather than just read it all as a book at the moment. I was just picking certain parts, and I was like, that is so powerful. That's so healing. And the big part really is sometimes the part you think, I won't tell that side. I don't need to tell everything. There was a part that I was like bouncing the idea off towards the end of the book, and I was like, should I add it? Should I not add it? It's a bit of effort for me to do it. I don't know if it adds anything to the book. I'm not putting it in. And then part of me was just kept thinking, you need it in the book. You need it in the book. Like, you won't be happy with this book unless it's in there. And I thought, ah, damn. So I put it in. And I read these chapters last night, and I was like, wow, that is going to help so many people. Because what I think it comes down to sometimes is when we're vulnerable, so when we share our vulnerabilities, it makes people feel less lonely, seen. And I think that's how I felt when I was reading it. I thought this is going to help so many people because there are people that can relate to this. And the other thing is for me to be able to be so vulnerable and put that onto a page of a book and share it with the world, that's healing for people. I'm no doubt about that because it shows people that it's okay to share your story. It's okay to speak up, and it's not weak. The experiences we go through actually make us strong and resilient. There's a reason to the experiences. And that's what I really like. And you can so effectively, you make yourself really proud when you share your story and when you keep pursuing your dreams. But you also empower other people. So it's like a double-edged sword. It's a beautiful double-edged sword. Everybody wins. So this book, for instance, I'm excited to where it could lead because it's a little bit raw, but I love how raw it is. I'm reading it, and it's just, of all my books, I think this is the one that's going to help those that are at their lowest. But I also think it will help people relate to people that they're at the lowest, because sometimes that's a hard thing to handle. I've spoke about the traumas we go through and obviously setting boundaries with people, all these sort of things. It's empowerment really to show people that, you are strong. You probably just don't realize it and you have the power to change your life. But what it also does is shows people that the healing process isn't overnight. You don't just snap your fingers and everything gets better when life seems like it's improving. We still carry the trauma. It takes time to change the way we handle situations. So even if you had everything, let's say you've just been through trauma, all of a sudden your life's perfect. It seems like you should be the happiest you are, but you still have maybe you're a bit maybe you still have anxiety, maybe you're still tired. So maybe you're not quite embracing everything 100%. You're still becoming reclusive, you're getting exhausted, you need to take your energy back. That's part of the healing process. And it's only when we become more comfortable with the circumstance, like it becomes part of it becomes familiar. Only then, will you truly actually be able to embrace it? Because that's the thing, if when you've had enough trauma, you expect trauma. So even if something improves, in the back of your mind, you're still anticipating something going wrong. And it's only when you recognize that that's not happening is that you can start to embrace and have confidence that the new life is the new life. So like I say, this book, I'm excited to the way it's going to heal people. And it's all about inspiring people to be themselves. But I do love the idea, and I'd love to hear stories in the future where maybe something I've done has empowered people to do something remarkable. Whether it's just healing their life and they've gone on a huge transformation and their life's improved, or whether it's my headphones are going funny. Wait a minute. Yeah. So or whether they do something remarkable and they tell their story and they help change some lives. I think the big thing we met with many people is they're competitive. They gatekeep or they sabotage other people from being successful, and I've never understood that. I don't see why multiple people can't be successful. Like, why can't I be successful, and then someone else that comes along and they start to be successful? Why should that be a threat to me? And too many people are like this, and I find it absolutely insane. I'd rather people were successful. I'd love to see people growing, but I want people to be original. I don't want them to be mirrors and copies of other people. Don't mimic someone and take an easy way out because all you're doing is foregoing your own experiences anyway. You're actually limiting the opportunity to build your character, build knowledge. You just you're playing a character. To play a character and be something you're not is just so pointless. Again, that goes against the whole point of being authentic. People that aren't authentic, they will eventually come up to situations where they can't get out of because they don't have the answers to it to the situation they find themselves. So it serves no purpose. You're better off taking the harder path, the longer path, and it's a beautiful transition. Like I had um, a vision. I spoke about it before, and I have never had a vision like this. I'm spiritual, so of course there's a spiritual undertone to some of my books. Not specifically this book, but there is a slight mention of nothing to do with this topic I'm talking about now. But I did have a vision where I closed my eyes and Jesus presented himself to me. And you just you naturally know who someone is, especially in a dream. It wasn't even a dream state. I was literally just closed my eyes and I was trying to do my protection, which people learn about through my books, the protection. And Jesus presented himself to me and smiled and gave me a hug. And I had had signs before then of I've reached the top of my mountain. Um, you've come a long way. You're doing what you come here to do. And for me, that was just a beautiful confirmation, that Jesus is aware of my path, proud of what I've achieved, and I am making significant improvements to this world. And like I said, that goes full circle on what's the point of your life? What do you want it to be about? I always knew I had potential all the way, like from childhood all the way through as an adult. I was just frustrated because I didn't know where to put that energy. I was trying to put it into different one place here, one place, trying to figure myself out. It was only when I aligned with my true calling, everything just seemed to snap into place, and it made so much sense. I enjoy talking. I've always been a talker. I've been a very, very talkative person. So me talking on camera, for instance, is effortless. It's just like, this isn't even an effort to me at all. It's ridiculous. I could just do it all day. So it stands to reason I can do that on a pages of a book, and it just flows with me onto the pages of a book. And it's kind of like, I think when you find what's innately your gift, life just becomes simpler. It's not so much work, although you have to put a lot of hard work in, of course, to mold and sculpt something and to like enhance it. So like I spoke recently about, when you want something to be your career or something, or you're just trying to build something, it's like keep working on the craft. You've got to fine tune it. If you want to do something great, then you've got to work at making it great. It's just you can't just naturally be great. It takes work to fine tune a craft. Um, but yeah, I feel like I'm on the right path. I even like I always say this. Even if I stop now, that's 6 books, incredibly healing, transformative for people, and I can't help but think, "Oh, what a beautiful gift to the world that I've actually managed to do. I've managed to accomplish it. I've sacrificed more than anyone would ever know. That I've sacrificed. I've had incredibly low moments that people wouldn't see. I mean, they may have seen some on the videos I do, but they didn't see it in my personal home life. When I get so frustrated, so demoralized, I get angry even. It's just life sometimes just isn't fair. You try to be as kind as you can. You try to be as pure as you can, and sometimes you just don't get the results you expect. And it's just like one roadblock after another, more suffering, but it's but it's about testing our durability. How much do you want it? Will you do this even if there's no reward? Because if you're doing it for all the treasure in the world, then you're not doing it for the right reasons. It may come as a consequence, but if it's only for the treasure, you may as well walk away now then, because you're doing it for the right things. So I've done 6 books with barely a penny to my name, and I just relentless because even if I was poor my entire life, I'd still continue what I'm doing. I haven't seen the success from what I believe should be successful. If you look on my book list over the side there's 2 on the right. They're both coming soon. One's the end of the year, or the other one's spring. I've only just released this book, Find Your Peace to Save Your Soul. So, regardless of whether I see success or not from this book, I'm still working on the next book and the one after. All totally different. And that's why I set these in motion. Normally, I do a book a year, and I don't even think about another one until it's finished. This time, I had different concepts, and I was like, "This is what we're working. This is what I'm working to." Then, so this one's like I said, this is healing ourselves, trying to empower people really, and teach people to be authentic, tell their story, or at least face their story head on. Um, it's not trying to hide the truth, especially from ourselves, and then you can process and heal. And then it's about setting boundaries with people who don't support us, who just anchor us or weigh us down. So and they have the wrong expectations. All sorts of things, really. But it's about empowering ourselves. Then the next one, I can't even remember the name of the book, to be honest. I've been so focused on this one, and I come up with the titles for the upcoming books, but I can't even remember. I think it was Embrace Your Light. Um, might be Embrace Your Light to Find Your Soul. I really can't remember. That's quite bad, isn't it? But anyway, the next book is spiritual. So it's an entirely spiritual book. So Losing Your Mind to Find Your Soul is my spiritual book, but I wrote that in 2021. I did an update in 2023, so the end of last year, to make it a second edition, I think it was. Yeah. And then sometimes you do books and you think it covers everything. And at the time I felt it covered everything. And to be honest, anyone reading it is going to feel that does cover an awful lot. But I've had a lot of experiences since that book, and I've got an entirely new book in development, and that's a spiritual book too. So that'll be the 2 spiritual books. So that's pretty cool. Then we've got, I can't remember what the next book's called now. Freedom and something. Freedom and Politics, I think it is, or is it Freedom and Society? Really can't remember. But again, that's my frustration with the way the world is, the imbalance within society. And I was trying, what it was, I wanted to make my books focused. I didn't want to deviate one way or the other. So this is all about healing, this book, for instance. And it's, like I just said, all the things it entails. I didn't want it to be a book where I keep deviating in and out of societal issues. So I was like, wait a minute. Let's put a book together that focuses on that. The corruption within politics, how the world is governed, how we're forced to live this sort of this way through society. That's just so unbalanced. We don't have as much control as we think we do, but we do have the power to take control back. Um, so anyway, that's a book I'm really just going to focus on next year. I'm not really thinking about that right now. It's really just enjoy a break from writing just for a period, so I can enjoy the achievement really of fulfilling this one, and then it'll be getting on with the spiritual book, maybe next month or something. I'll probably start on it sooner because know me, I'm just ridiculous really. I should I should rest. I deserve to rest. But inherently, I do end up just going, well, let me just have a look at this. And then I'll just go full pelt into it and I'll annoy myself because I didn't have enough break. I have an audiobook to record for the new book, Find Your Peace to Save Your Soul. Um, yeah, this book is available for $9.99 today only. After that, it's going back up to $15.99. So if anyone wants it, it's worth grabbing it like early. Grab it now. And like I say, then I've got the audiobook to do for it. And I've also pushed it out to other stores now. So it was on Amazon. That's how I always start with Amazon. But now I've pushed it out to all the other stores, such as Apple. I don't know if I'm going to bother with Google. I haven't decided yet. But then there's a lot of other ones like Barnes and Noble. And it's already there. I think I'm waiting for Apple to be approved because Apple takes slightly longer. But yeah, it will be available and it's pretty cool. And like I said, I'm hopeful that it will, on a fundamental level, help people heal and people face their traumas and understand that it's really it's the traumas the things we go through are not what define us. It's how we deal with it that defines us. So you always have a choice. You know, we can either bury our head in the sand, go into self-pity mode, go defeating ourselves. So it's a really negative path. Or you take on the challenge and go, okay, it's not fair, but I'm going to transcend beyond this. So you either inspire yourself to grow beyond it, or you keep yourself struggling and suffering. But the trouble is, as soon as you start suffering, it's really hard to get out of that mindset. You know, it's just it repeats, and then you just end up in misery. Now, life isn't always fair, so you have to accept that. That's a big part, isn't it? The fact that life isn't fair. So the pity fit party isn't really going to help. You can get frustrated and angry and resentful sometimes, but don't stay there. And then we grow and then we start ascending and we can achieve things. So effectively, I chose the path of uplifting myself and I've created 6 books from that. Instead, I could have just felt self-pity and gone a completely different path and been a recluse and a shell of who I am now, but I didn't see how that would benefit me in the slightest because that's not who I am. So effectively, if I was going to be like that, what would have led me there? And it usually comes down to people. What led you there? A circumstance. Well, the circumstance tends to involve people. So why would I allow someone to make me feel that low that I become a shell of who I am? I'm not gonna do that. Um, so yeah, we empower ourselves to be great, and then we get to witness that greatness unfold, which is pretty cool, isn't it? Um, yeah, and we all have unique experiences, but like I say, it's really important, especially to me, is that you just be yourself, be transparent. You know, if you have an outburst, you've had an outburst. You can document that, or you can share it with people, or you can tell people about it. Because guess what? Other people that go through a healing journey will also have an outburst, and it'd be really healing for them to know that other people had an outburst. Otherwise, they might feel that they're not doing it right. Which is what I've done throughout my books. I've led a path on purpose. I've always been myself. I've shared the journey completely pure because I knew that people that come after me need to see what it was at, what you went through. Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise, how can they relate to it? I don't want people to self doubt and sabotage themselves because they feel they're not as good. It's like it's hard for all of us. It's just you have to keep pushing forward even when it seems impossible. Innately within yourself, as you grow, you will feel better about yourself. You'll be more confident, more powerful. It's not about being arrogant, it's confidence. So you should still have humility around it, but you do recognize that you're growing and ascending. I feel within myself, I feel incredibly powerful. I feel so confident, it's ridiculous. I know who I am more and more every day. Um, and the other thing to consider there is one day, let's say you was in the spotlight, let's say something happened, people now know your name. It's now you're getting the credit you deserve. it shouldn't take that for you to see the value in yourself. I already see in terms, let's say celebrity. Within my own aura, my own energy, my own being, I already feel like a celebrity. I already feel that in myself. It's not I don't need someone to verify it to me. Do you know what I mean? It's like I already know my status within myself, my energy. Um, so if an opportunity comes, it's kind of like, well, okay, but it didn't take that for me to see my value, and that's really where we need to get to. Now, you're not going to feel that immediately, especially on the early stage of a journey. You're going to feel maybe you're not worth it, and you're never going to attain anything. Life's lost the meaning. It's like that's self-defeating. Why not just change the mindset to let's see how far I can go, and you might be actually surprised. Nothing's overnight. I talk about this a lot. Um, like my daughter was incredibly, she said, "Wow," when I showed her the books finished. And I said to her, I said, remember what I said? This is what I said to her. Remember what I said? Overnight success it takes years. It takes years to have an overnight success. Um, so literally, I've told her from the very beginning, before I wrote my first book, as I was writing it, I said, I'm going to change both of our lives. I said, we will live a much better life than we've lived up to now. So just, I have no doubt about it. I've been confident throughout, she'll be able to say that. I've never swayed from my belief, and I've never swayed from the work I put into things. And I've always promised her our life will improve and I will give her a beautiful life. She doesn't expect anything, but it does surprise her when I keep progressing. And it's like, don't worry, I've always got the vision in my mind. I know where I'm heading, um, and it inspires her too. And I mean that's really for me and her. That's why I do a lot. But then I also recognize, and I've spoke about it in my book, I do take the responsibility very seriously of helping people. It's when people are trusting you and you're helping people and you're providing guidance. I think it's really important that you're very honest and transparent with that, and take it seriously. Don't falsify anything. Don't blur the truth. And that's what I won't do. So people will see how vulnerable I am in this upcoming book. Believe me, they'll be surprised how vulnerable I am. But it's like, how can I heal people if I don't share that? It's unrelatable. Someone can say, "Do this," I would do this or do that, and it's like, yeah, it's easy for you to say. And it's like, no, no, no. It's actually that comes from me doing it. Believe me, I've been there. Again, like I say, it becomes relatable. So if I can tell my story and I can have that level of vulnerability in telling that story, then others should be able to do similar too. And it's not always a case to tell your story when you're successful. I started my journey when I was at my weakest. I just finished family court. I was a mess. My solicitor said, "Oh, you should tell this story of what happened," because they were shocked by what happened. I think they just made an offhand comment. I was like, okay, and I went and wrote that, documented the whole thing that happened, and it was all fresh, fortunately, and I had all the evidence, so I was managing how to do it, and so I could structure it and things, and it was an incredible achievement. But I wrote that book in my worst struggle. So don't wait until life's perfect to tell your story. So tell it while it's fresh. And it's actually therapeutic. So you will cry if you've gone through trauma and tragedy and loss. Believe me, you're going to cry. You're going to have breakdown. But you got to be strong enough to see through it. It's okay. I have to get comfortable with loss. Nothing lasts forever. It's nothing is ever permanent. Everything is temporary. Until you make peace with that, you're always going to struggle with loss. Effectively, just make the most of the moments you have with people and be ready to adapt and change. And when you get like that, it's not so traumatic. It ain't ideal, but it ain't as traumatic. But again, you start work. I think you start sharing your journey, become more comfortable doing it, and people can also go on their healing journey too. So not only do you transform your life, you can transform the lives of those around you. And that's quite a beautiful thing, isn't it? But it's also not being scared of the world. There'll be people, there'll always be people that resent, people that don't believe, people that ridicule. But it's like people can do what they want. People have agendas. That's the trouble. There'll also be people that invest in it. They're inspired by it. They appreciate it. And really, that's what you do it for, isn't it? You do it for those people. forget the noise of the others. And it's a waste of your time. But also, it's no point being scared of reprisals or something happening. We could live in fear your whole life, you know. I just walk through life head on. That's all I do. Just keep walking forward. So if something's going to happen, it's going to happen. What can I do about it? But I certainly not going to walk. I'm not going to walk around scared. That doesn't do me any good. Why should I be scared? We all have our time up at some point. It's not for me to define when that is, but I'm not going to be sort of walking around terrified of speaking just in case. It's like, that's no good. Doesn't do me any good. I cannot be bought. I cannot be coerced. And I think, in all honesty, I think that's quite a rare trait to have because most people can, sadly. They're corrupt. And hopefully, like I said, by me telling my story and things, it'll maybe prevent people from being corrupt and literally recognize that they themselves are actually beautiful because our flaws are endearing. I talk about that a lot. Our flaws are our quirks, and that's what makes us endearing. And I think when you try to forgo that and act like everything's perfect, you're actually just stopping yourself from being original and unique, and that's sad. So, support me, be ourselves. If you have the strength and the resilience, share your story because you never know who it's going to help heal. And it may be the thing that transforms your life.